Okay, we are back. I'm your host, Barry Waxler, here with my co-host, Andrea Kay. And our fill-in host is Stephanie Murphy. And our last guest of the day, last but not least, is Brian Jones from American Bioengineers. Welcome, Brian.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Great. So tell us a little bit about American Bioengineers. What do you do?
Okay. We are accident reconstruction and biomechanical engineering consultants. I know that's a mouthful, but basically we take the evidence or pieces of a puzzle, so to speak, and put it together to determine what happened in the accident. And on the biomechanical side, we look at the forces involved in the accident and how the body would react, and tolerances, injuries, things of that nature.
So you're a real-life CSI.
Yes, essentially.
So but when you watch those shows, do you just like laugh at how like far-fetched they are? And I mean, but it did put Vegas on the map where you have an office.
Absolutely, absolutely. I do have to remind myself it is Hollywood. So when they're speaking in engineering terms, typically they don't have it correct. And my wife says, "Just hush, Brian. Just let them be." And
right.
It's definitely an enjoyable show back in the day.
Well, before we got on air, you were telling us the story of how you got into the business, because this is not a common business you're in.
What, he didn't grow up as a little kid and say, "Hey, I want to do accident reenactments when I grow up."
That is correct. I was it was North Carolina, if you haven't discerned that yet from my slight draw, but it was last year in college at NC State, and I'm doing some landscaping at a big property, and this is out in the country, so it's not a residential area. And so I'm digging some holes, planting some shrubbery, things of that nature. All of a sudden, you hear this engine just loud, vroom, comes flying by. I look up, it's a red Corvette that just must have been doing 100, 120 miles an hour that flies by. My foreman immediately looks at me and says, "Brian, this whole man's going to mess with you. Just be prepared." And no big deal. He's a good guy. So sure enough, it turns out he owned the development we were working.
Yeah.
So when he gets out of his car, he absolutely comes right up to me. He doesn't even blink. Yells at me. "What do you know what you're doing? What are you doing?" And it just took me aback. So I just chuckled and said, "Well, I'm digging a hole." So then it eased the tension, and then my foreman said, "Hey, this Brian is a senior in mechanical engineering at NC State." So the person's name is Dr. Charles Manning, Jr. of Accident Reconstruction Analysis in Raleigh, North Carolina. And he said, "Oh, really? Well, come see me." So I found out later that he really liked the fact that I was doing manual labor and didn't walk around with a pocket protector.
Yeah. Interesting.
You're like a real guy instead of like a geek, right?
I guess that was the perception, yes.
Yeah. Well, when I hear biomechanical engineers, I think of the Terminator movie. Like you guys are like creating like some kind of, mechanical people.
Yes, we're not. I actually took some robotics classes, and that can be fun, believe it or not. But basically, a biomechanical engineer is taking Newtonian mechanics or physics and applying it to the body. So in other words, if the body or certain component of the body is subjected to a force, direction, how is the body going to react? What tolerances are there? In other words, how much force does it take to break a femur, given direction and magnitude?
Okay, so this would be like applied in the case of like a test dummy. For safety standards for vehicles.
Absolutely. We are the guys that instrument the dummies and crash them and then download the data and assess the accelerations and forces.
Interesting.
Not doctors for the attorneys out there.
But instead of you're doing it for crash test dummies, you're actually doing it on after a car has been developed and created and come off the line, and now it's involved in a crash. What happens then? How do you get involved at that point?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not in the research and design area, and what you're talking about is the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration new car assessment programs where you see them crashing the cars with the dummies. But I get involved if there's an actual accident, and typically there are injuries sustained. And so the insurance companies or attorneys become involved because next thing you know, there's
litigation.
Absolutely, and medical bills accruing. So I come in, I look at the cars, we scan the scene, and then you utilize laws of physics to reconstruct the accident and determine basically who's at fault. And on the bio end, are these injuries consistent with the accident?
Interesting. You're listening to Close Up on San Diego Business here on KFSD AM 1450 and financialnewsandtalk.com. I'm your host, Barry Waxler, here with my co-hosts, Andrea Kay and Stephanie Murphy. And our guest is Brian Jones from American Bioengineers. So you get most of your business, you get called on by the insurance industry and by the legal industry, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So, what do you want to tell the people listening as to what you do differently? Why do people want to come to you instead of going elsewhere?
Okay, well, I might sound a bit arrogant on that, but typically you're going to want an expert that knows what he's doing, has the latest and greatest tools with regard to technology, and can present the complex opinions to the average person. Because at the end of the day, I can be the smartest guy in the world, but my job, where I earn my respect, is getting into the courtroom and conveying these complex opinions and laws of physics to an average person.
So it's not only the ability to re-engineer the incident, but it's your skills in communicating that in a courtroom.
Absolutely.
Great.
So you would be able to help Walmart explain why Tracy Morgan needed to have that seatbelt on in that accident, right?
Absolutely. I saw that the other day and chuckled.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, why'd you chuckle?
Well, let's see. I'll try to be PC here. Obviously, Walmart has deep pockets.
Right.
And I have not reconstructed the accident. I really don't know much about the specifics of the accident. But most likely, Walmart is primarily at fault. So they're trying to ease the damages side of it. So in other words, hey, you wouldn't have sustained these injuries if you had had your seatbelt, or they would have been lesser in severity. So at the end of the day, Walmart's just trying to get out of paying as much for the.
But is there some argument there that you need to wear a seatbelt?
Absolutely an argument. What I like to tell people is if you don't have your seatbelt on, you're like a pinball inside a pinball machine bouncing around. And, there's three impacts that people don't realize. When you're in a motor vehicle accident, you have the cars impacting. The next impact is the occupant going forward or in whatever direction pursuant to the principal direction of force. And then your internal organs are moving as well. So there's really three impacts.
Wow. Interesting. Now, I see that you do business in both San Diego as well as Vegas or Nevada?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a special license where you need for both states, or is it just your training and the regular business license?
Unfortunately, in the field of accident reconstruction, you're not required to have a license. However, I am a licensed professional engineer in both the states of Nevada and California, and there's also an entity called the Accreditation Commission for Traffic Accident Reconstructionists, the acronym's ACTAR, and I have that certification as well.
Okay, great. Okay, well, we're starting to run short on time, so tell our listeners how they can get in touch with you.
Well, you can reach us through our local number, 619-269-2089, or hop on the web at AmericanBioengineers.com, all spelled out.
Okay, and engineers being plural.
That is correct.
Great. Accident reconstruction, biomechanical engineering, mechanical engineering, consultants, expert witness. Seemed like you do it all in that area.
I try, but I definitely like to stay within my area of expertise.
Great. Okay, so we will pass the word on, and we appreciate you being with us.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you guys.
Great. So we are short on time. Anything you want to leave our listeners with there, Miss Andrea?
Well, I just want to again give a shout out to everybody we met yesterday at that great event up there, America's Top Planner. It was a super event. I was honored to be there. I thought you did a great presentation. I was just really proud of you yesterday.
Yeah, I was running around with everybody. Everybody's name at the event started with a J, and then I finally pulled out of that crowd and found a bunch of Davids out there. So I called them J. Davids. It was strange. But true. So anyway, great. Well, been a great show today. We look forward to getting together next week. You're listening to Close Up on San Diego Business, where we get up close and personal with homegrown San Diego businesses and the people that are working hard to make a difference in our community. This is financialnewsandtalk.com. I'm your host, Barry Waxler. We will be back next week with another great show, and all I can do is say, stay awesome, San Diego.
You guys are clear.